for attending our webinar all about lifestyle wellness. We are really excited to share this one with everyone. To get us kicked off, we'll talk about why we really wanted to focus on wellness this month. We were starting to brainstorm about what we were wanting to research about this month, and the idea of wellness came up. And at first, we weren't sure if we had enough new information to share on this topic. But as we started to explore and really dive deep into what's happening in wellness now and what we believe is happening now that will feed into our future as we look forward, we really noticed a shift that we felt was significant enough to devote this entire month to researching wellness. This shift is really all about how wellness is becoming so much more casual, more approachable, more accessible. It's almost shifting into something that we could call integrated well-being, a really integrated part of all of our day-to-day lives. We're no longer really dividing our life into times when we are taking care of ourselves and time when we're not taking care of ourselves. As we begin to look at every single part of our lives through this lens of wellness, we're considering things that we wouldn't have otherwise considered to be part of wellness or well-being or a healthy living as a part of wellness that fall into this bucket. These are things like socializing, like mental health, emotional health, and bringing this authentic balance to life. And this is all sort of starting to get wrapped up into one bucket that we could call holistic wellness. And our job as designers, we want to help people integrate these ideas of wellness throughout their whole day so that it feels really seamless and it's something that's accessible and automatically a part of the day. We love this concept also as designers because we really think that it ties in so well to creating and designing a community and spaces that really support optimal health. As we look at our wellness consumer, we are again really diving into this idea of this consumer wanting to take this holistic approach to health, wrap this into their whole day. They're really thinking about things like mental health, like social health. We know that 79% of people say wellness is important to them, and this entire forecast explores what wellness is, what it looks like today, and what we are seeing it shift to. As we look at this consumer more closely, again, they're really looking for ways to integrate wellness into their day-to-day life. They want to incorporate wellness into other parts of their life, like socializing. They want doing something with friends to be a wellness activity. Either they are doing something wellness related with friends, or they consider just hanging out with friends to be something that feeds into this idea of social wellness that we'll explore later. And they're taking a much more casual approach to wellness that's very approachable. A snapshot of what's in, what's out. We'll highlight a few of these here, and we'll explore a lot of these topics further in our presentation today. One idea that we love is the idea of the wellness circuit, creating this compelling holistic wellness experience path in a space so that the users know what they're able to do in that space, and it feels like it's this packaged idea that's so experiential and really sells itself to the end user. We're looking at mental health going more mainstream. We'll explore ideas around urban bathhouses. We'll talk a bit about cold therapy. A lot of this forecast is all about social becoming wellness, and we'll explore that further. We'll get a little bit into tech, and then alternatively, EMF awareness. And then things that are out, we're really seeing a shift away from these amenities being so private behind closed doors. For example, saunas. We're seeing them become more social and come more out into the open. Another thing that we talk about a little bit is serious wellness. Wellness without that sense of levity, without that sense of approachability. That is out. We're seeing that shift too. We want to talk about Generation Z's perspective on wellness. We think this is really foundational to the shift that's happening as they influence all other generations. For a quick recap on Gen Z, they were born in 1997 to 2012. And an important thing about this generation is how much they value health and wellness. It's been cited to be their #1 priority. And for them, like we've touched on so far, that health is more than just the physical health of the body. It encompasses so much more for this generation. We're talking about sleep, body image, gender identity, spirituality, active fitness, emotional well-being, and then mental health, which we'll talk about on the next page. But this holistic view of well-being that they really hold so closely also challenges sort of what we've been seeing over the past maybe even 10 years of this really curated, visually appealing, ready for Instagram, kind of expensive, feeling like there's maybe a barrier to entry wellness, these strict routines and practices that you need all the right tools, you need the right lighting, you need the right camera angles to really capture what you're doing and do it. And Gen Z is saying no to that. They want this to be something that is accessible to everyone, that's approachable. They have this relaxed approach to wellness, and they're not looking for a cure-all. They don't believe in that. They know that things take time and take steps, and that balance is so crucial to overall wellness as well. So they're less rigid, they're more relaxed. We have an example in here, this image kind of inspiring it, this decadent looking candy goblet here, but saying that if Gen Z wants to eat something like this because it looks fun and it looks good, they will. Even if they're someone who typically avoids like artificial flavors or something like that, or food coloring, if they really want to eat that, they will. And that to them is wellness, because that is that balance that they're striving for, that they truly believe is what this is all about. They're a little bit more skeptical. So we mentioned it too, they're not going to buy into something as a cure-all, as a quick fix. They know that they need to be really proactive about wellness, and it's a day-to-day journey that will give them this well-being throughout all of their life. This is something really interesting, I think, to note. That's a shift with other generations versus Gen Z. Looking at how they'll influence other generations, thinking that because we have so many brands who are marketing to Gen Z, they're changing gears a little bit to fit into what they're looking for. That will subtly impact all other generations. And then Gen Z, being a very influential generation, is also sort of influencing. So I think we'll see this shift kind of permeate through the other generations as well. Talking about mental health, we definitely see Gen Z leading the charge with this conversation about mental health, and this conversation around mental health really being a driving force behind wellness and where wellness is going. We have some statistics here, 75% of Gen Z saying that they're really open to talking about the state of their mental health. And that generation is 27% more likely to report their mental health is fair or poor, compared with other generations who may fib when they're being pulled on these things to report a more positive mental state. So this is something that we're really seeing this generation influence and lead the way and teach other generations that it is okay, it is becoming socially acceptable to be truthful and authentic and acknowledge the state of mental health. This is one of the driving forces behind this generation really leaning into wellness. They're using these other wellness tools that we'll go through later on in this presentation to manage their mental health. This is super interesting as well. We have a note here that though Gen Z certainly has valid sources of stress, we can also kind of infer that anytime the younger generations witness and react to the experience they're observing in the older generations, they'll seek to pivot their behavior and avoid those same outcomes. So perhaps as Gen Z has watched older generations, the boomers, Gen X, millennials, really compartmentalize emotions, work themselves into burnout, lead lives that are too busy for self-care, they are seeking to take a proactive approach to change this, preserve optimal mental health, and really make a shift to do things differently. So this is sort of how we've set the stage for the rest of this presentation and the things that we'll look into further. Our first page here is all about Asha Urban Baths. We wanted to spotlight this particular space because it's so beautiful and we love their programming so much. This urban bathhouse trend is something that we've been watching really closely, and we think Asha has done it in such a beautiful way. They have great programming They have the cold plunges, saunas, salt lounge, sound therapy. We especially love this cold bucket shower that you see here. And so you pull the chain, the bucket of freezing cold water is poured on you. It is a great photo opportunity. We cannot deny that, but an innovative amenity that we haven't seen many places. The other thing that we really love about this space is how they have their spaces programmed for social versus quiet space. You can see here that they are using signage to communicate this, and they actually shift the spaces depending on day of the week and time. So people know when they're going, if they're going to be able to access a social space for quiet conversation, meeting others, taking two birds with one stone approach to getting their social fix while also doing a wellness activity. Or alternatively, there are silent spaces where people know that they can go and really go internal, be able to meditate or just zone out the day. And that is a great option too. So loving the way that they are utilizing and flexing their spaces between silent and social here. As we do talk about social, we have a concept here that we wanted to share, the social sauna. So when we did research on this, we looked to Europe, of course, the birthplace of the sauna. And there, the sauna experience is really social at its core. People know the wellness benefits. It's part of the culture. Here in the States, the experience is so different. It's very private typically, and it's not necessarily part of the culture that people grow up knowing all about what the wellness benefits are. So there's a little education needed, though this trend is certainly catching on. And we're really wanting to see a shift here to make these sauna spaces more social. Invite people, have a larger space, a larger sauna, put them in a more public space so they're not super tucked away behind a closed locked door. Definitely want to prioritize making these spaces feel safe. So they're out in the open. People are encouraged to come and go as they want. Of course, making them co-ed, having people wear a swimsuit, having these spaces feel similar to the way people are used to using a hot tub or even a pool. Thinking that that is a really nice way to make these wellness spaces more social and give people that chance to do something wellness related while also engaging socially and engaging in community. We really want to make sure that we're prioritizing adjacencies here. So having a user guide that illustrates this wellness circuit idea, perhaps leading people from a workout to the sauna and then to the cold plunge, which we'll talk about on the next couple of pages, and really creating this program that feels holistic and like this circuit. Just another note that we wanted to include here that's pretty cool. There are some places in Europe where they have these sauna amphitheaters that 50 to 300 people can sweat all together, and it's a social fun experience. Even there's part of the culture there is this term here. You'll see Aufguss, excuse my American accent there, but it's a sauna ritual where there's actually kind of a performer. This person is presenting, they're pouring water over the hot stones, they're creating steam, it's involving essential oils, and they do this sort of art form performance with a towel, and they're fanning the towel in an artistic way to tell a story like a true performance on all the people in the sauna. So wondering if we'll see a little bit of the perhaps Americanized version of this sort of enter that social sauna scene. You can see here in this circle cropped image, the Starlight Steam Room at Bathhouse in Brooklyn, which if you haven't seen, check out Bathhouse in Brooklyn. It is one of the early movers in the urban bathhouse trend. We've been watching them. But they have this Starlight Steam Room where you can see in the image here, they're projecting this sort of star scene, and it's a more experiential time in the sauna. So really noting this shift and loving how we can incorporate this idea. Okay, as promised, onto cold therapy. So again, we have the cold bucket shower pictured here. You can see the bucket and the chain, you pull it and the water is on you. A more popular approach to this is the ice bath or a cold plunge. And this was made popular, arguably kind of entered into the conversation by Wim Hof. And this cold therapy has been linked to so many benefits, not only physical, like reducing inflammation, sore muscles, helping with recovery for athletes, but also really a lot of emotional and mental health benefits as well. Helps to recalibrate the nervous system, helps people really deal with anxiety, feel that they can overcome emotional barriers, because if you can stay in a freezing cold ice bath for 4 minutes, you can do anything. So this is really catching on, and we're seeing this start to become a little bit more mainstream. A great thing with the cold therapy is to combine it with the sauna. So again, bring this cold therapy into that wellness circuit that we talked about. Going back and forth between the hot of the sauna and the cold of the cold plunge is known as contrast therapy. And there are many health benefits to that, which are known and is really part of the culture in Europe, but is just starting to catch on and become more mainstream here in the States. We love this particular spec. It's actually called Plunge. You can see their branding here. And they have a commercial plunge pool, which is a great option, of course, for a commercial setting. The way that it works is that the tub has a pump and the water is sanitized. So you don't need to fill this up each time someone uses it. It's sort of like a hot tub. You need to change the water, of course, from time to time, but it is sanitary. There's a filter constantly running, and you dip in for 5 minutes, probably maximum, 5 minutes or less, and you're dipping out. So it's something that's like kind of a quick turnover. You're in and out. And one thing we wanted to highlight is that we love to spec at least 2 of these cold plunge pools next to each other. That way it can be a social experience. It's always good to have someone cheering you on, or you feel like you can do something that's really challenging when you're in a group setting and you're doing it with someone else. So one person fits in each tub, so it's not really a multi-person situation, but they're right next to each other. You can dunk in at the same time and root each other on. We really love to program these cold plunges in that way. And again, these are in a public setting. You wear a swimsuit. It's the same sort of mentality as a hot tub. You dip in, you dip out. It can be adjacent to fitness, adjacent to the pool. These plunges are rated for indoor and outdoor, so this can be on a roof deck as well. Here we are diving in a bit to social wellness. We've touched on this so much already. This is sort of just a catch-all page to really dive into some of the reasoning behind it. Thinking that it's generally agreed upon that we as humans know that we're a social species, but sometimes we forget that for a while. We all start to feel those ill effects, and then we kind of have to reset. So looking at kind of this macro trend, thinking we're in a little bit of that reset phase right now, and people are really diving into this idea of social health, looking at this term social healing that we're seeing, referring to really leveling up social interactions. And so social self-care, this term that we've also seen emerge, might include things like choosing to work in an office or a co-work space if you're a typical remote worker, maybe engaging in group wellness events, taking a technology break to interact with humans in person, or on the flip side, using technology to connect with people digitally. Example would be staying in touch over like a Fitbit challenge. So there's many approaches to this, but we're seeing people really double down on this idea of social healing, social health, social wellness, social self-care, all words that mean the same thing.
And you got this.
Remedy Place is a wellness social club that we want to highlight. We love that they call themselves a wellness social club, just that branding alone. We're really seeing this idea of social wellness be reinforced here in their branding. They have locations in West Hollywood, also in New York and the city, and their concept is really built upon enhancing your health and social life through self-care and human connection. We love the branding that they have on their website. They kind of position themselves as your new happy hour, your new date spot, your new after work hangout. So really highlighting that shift of people wanting to go somewhere to take care of themselves. Of course, it's beautiful. You can see their design. These are their hyperbaric oxygen chambers. These are their cold plunges. So we are seeing people have these really designed in a social setting. So many in a row, people are plunging at the same time to cheer each other on. John Mackey is the co-founder of Whole Foods and was the CEO until earlier this year. He just has stepped down to do a new venture, which is what we're talking about. But we don't know all the details yet. Not much is released, but we wanted to highlight it here. There's a new venture and they're registered under the name Healthy America. TBD if that is the name that they will go with for these centers. But from what we can find out, he is creating a wellness center that is likely to go kind of national, just like Whole Foods. So what we know so far, these wellness centers will be rooted in lifestyle medicine. They will have a restaurant. The restaurant will be open to the public. It'll be kind of this like Whole Foods plant-based menu. The brand is being positioned as taking a holistic approach to health, leveraging the best of Eastern and Western medicine. So really just wanted to note this here and thinking that it will be interesting to watch this evolution to market saturation of these wellness centers as companies are streamlining and sort of packaging all these concepts we're talking about today for mass adoption. We may see these wellness / fitness / co-work / dining / social clubs really become a primary community draw for gathering. And that might be the only place that we go to leave the house. If you work from home and then you can go to one place to get your wellness, your fitness, see people, eat, who knows? It'll be interesting to see how much influence these wellness centers really have on community and placemaking. Shifting a little bit to talking about wellness kitchen, Vera Iconica Architecture has designed what they've trademarked as their wellness kitchen. And this idea helps to align our modern approach to food with our kitchen. Background info is kind of like our kitchen design that we all know and love is based on sort of a 1950s vibe kitchen, like TV dinners, one person in the kitchen making the meals for the whole family. And this is a real shift to inviting more users into the kitchen at once. You can see that it's bigger, more people can be in there cooking and prepping meals together. There's more storage space for fresh produce. There's a lot of counter space. They have an integrated hydroponic growing system to grow fresh vegetables right there and herbs right there in your kitchen. Really forward thinking. We love the thought behind this as we think about how to design our space for who we are as a shifting perspective on the idea of wellness. This is a bit of definitely a futurist concept here, but looking at the idea of EMF reduction. EMFs are electromagnetic frequencies, and they're the areas of the moving electrical charge. There are natural EMFs that are emitted, for example, by the sun, but we've also filled our world with more of these non-native electronics, and some people are reporting sensitivities to these frequencies. We're talking radio towers, cell phone towers, even phones and Wi-Fi routers themselves. So there's sort of this whole kind of like a bit counterculture approach to really designing for these sensitivities. So we know this is a super forward-thinking concept, but that is what we're here to report on and research. We wanted to highlight it here. There's some things that you can do to reduce the EMF exposure, things like using shielding fabrics that block those signals. We have pictured here the idea or kind of a concept of using a shielding fabric to section off an area for working or meditating. There's also things like certain crystals, certain devices that can help to create a signal that's more beneficial that blocks some of these frequencies that people report sensitivities to. And so it's something that we're keeping an eye on for sure. We wanted to research a bit about what is happening in this space, and there's not much going on, but there are some hotels and some communities that are really designing to limit exposure to these things, and people who are really sensitive kind of flock to these communities. So interestingly, there's a hotel in Paris that has especially designed guest rooms for people who are electromagnetically sensitive, and they have shielding wall paint. You have to make sure that you're grounding things properly. So they have grounding straps, radiation repellent windows. And then there's actually an apartment building in Zurich that was built to be as low EMF as possible. And they use a lot of those same concepts with the shielding, thick concrete, and they even have an entry vestibule that houses a utility closet separate from the rest of the living space so that all of those utilities are separate because all of that power and electrical panel and all of that gives off this radiation. So interesting concept. We're keeping our eye on this one to see what happens next if we're seeing this trickle more into the mainstream, but wanting to keep an eye on it. On the flip side though, wellness tech is still going so strong. We are seeing a little bit of that swing toward a low-tech approach to wellness, but technology in the wellness sector is, of course, continuing to grow and evolve. We highlighted a few products that we think are cool. There is the Now Watch, which is pictured here, seeks to sort of soften that tech approach. So this is a fully connected to your smartphone watch. But when you look at it, there's no screen. These pictured here are the screens, though they're not actually, I guess a watch face would be the most appropriate term. They're actually crystals, and you can switch them out to match your outfit or match your mood. However, the watch does have a sensor and it monitors things, especially your stress signals. So it will give you an alert when it senses that you're becoming stressed. And that is its primary function, but it tracks sleep and activity and all of those things. So really interesting approach that they kept the tech on the phone, but what you wear is sort of the soft tech approach. We've also seen other things like Form's fitness mirror. We're keeping an eye on all the fitness mirrors on the market. We love this one because it has a little bit of that curved kind of approach, not quite so many hard angles. And their programming includes things like sound healing and meditation, so a little bit more wellness driven alongside the fitness benefits. And then keeping an eye on the metaverse, as always, we're seeing, of course, wellness apps and immersive apps. So this is a screenshot of one meditation app called Maloka that you can go and you can see it's sort of like immersive, it's soft, the colors are soft, the images are curved. So really seeing this like soft tech approach. Wanting to not forget about all of our senses, talking about sound here, we are interested in this idea of psychoacoustics, as it's known, and it's all about how the sounds that we hear impact our emotions and our feelings. And looking at sort of these relationships between the frequencies of sound and well-being. Looking at some things here. So Endel is an app that has these sort of healing soundscapes, and they recently partnered with Grimes to create this collaboration that's this, they call it the AI lullaby. And it's this adaptive sleep soundscape that factors in location, the user's location and weather and natural light exposure, and it creates this really personalized sound experience. We also have highlighted here Brain FM. That is an app that creates functional music. So you can choose if you need to prepare to sleep or to focus or be creative. So really interesting ways to design and use with sound. We also have more analog approach here, but crystal bowls that play different frequencies and they align with the body's chakra system. We love the idea of incorporating sound in design, whether it's using something like these sort of immersive personal sound bubbles that you can kind of huddle under and have a sound experience, or activating spaces like elevators with sound, bringing these unexpected elements of wellness, integrating those, weaving those through the day-to-day in an unexpected space, like the elevators. We wanted to highlight a bit around wellness tourism as well. And we're seeing definitely some shifts here in this world as well. People are traveling with more intention. And as our perspective on what defines wellness, which is kind of what we've all been talking about today throughout this presentation, we're seeing travelers seeking out health-centric vacations or getaways or retreats that go beyond the typical what you would think of wellness tourism, beyond just a spa or a yoga retreat. So people are traveling to learn something, sharpen a skill, immerse themselves in some sort of authentic experience, and they see this as integral to their overall well-being. People could consider some sort of culinary themed trip through Asia as wellness, because if that sort of feeds their soul, they see that as wellness. Of course, the spa amenities are still super valid, and we are seeing people for sure traveling to experience those things as well. And then last, we want to leave with a bit of a thought starter, but looking at this emerging idea called the caring economy. This is a concept based on assigning an economic value to activities that people perform related to taking care of other people. These kinds of things can be childcare, elder care, education, healthcare, domestic services. And what's emerging is the idea that this sector of the economy is often unpaid and sort of invisible, but it's vital to sustaining life and population growth and economic growth in the more traditional sense. So there's this global conversation about how to make this economy visible, how to compensate caregivers, how to measure this in this sort of economic contribution that's not calculated into like the GDP or similar data sets. We're just looking at this idea, thinking that it's a key measurable to monitor as our perceptions around wellness evolve and shift and incorporate all of these ideas that were previously outside of this realm of wellness, but are now starting to be included. That does conclude our webinar today. Thank you all so much for attending. If there are any